This is the Samsung Galaxy XR, the first ever Android XR headset and Samsung's solution to the Apple Vision Pro. Good thing I'm using it for VRChat. This thing might just be the ultimate social VR headset. It's what people have wanted for years. OLED screens, wireless capabilities, eye and face tracking, and it isn't made by Meta. It certainly isn't perfect though, and for almost $2,000, it gets to the point where you have to ask yourself, is it really worth it? Well, I've been using this thing since January, and I've found that in a lot of ways, it's just a Quest Pro 2. The design is similar, the intended purpose is similar, and what people are actually using it for is similar. Exhibit A, eye and face tracking. This is built right into the headset, presumably so you can use it to video chat with the built-in Navatar system. I'm not too sure anyone's doing that one. Thankfully, Virtual Desktop supports forwarding that data to VRC face tracking. Capability-wise, it is very similar to the Quest Pro. It has pretty much identical eye capabilities, including eyebrow tracking, although the brows are a little bit worse. The mouth shapes are also almost identical, except the Galaxy XR lets you fully move your tongue around instead of just sticking it out. Now, it won't look good in VRChat right away. For whatever reason, the blend shapes get reported with very low maximum values sometimes. You can fix this by doing VRC face tracking's calibration, which can be pretty finicky and weird at times, or you can just manually adjust the minimum and maximums of each blend shape. Another quirk of this headset's eye tracking is that it uses it alongside the proximity sensor to determine if it should keep your screen on. If you close your eyes for too long, it just shuts the screens off, so if you're someone who likes to sleep in VR, that might get pretty annoying. I've heard it's possible to bypass it if you squint into the headset for a long enough period of time and a prompt will come up. I don't know, I haven't tested that myself since I don't really have the patience for it. Now, I will warn you, this thing has micro OLED displays which can burn in, so be cautious if you're gonna go through with bypassing safety measures. It would be a damn shame to damage these displays because, wow, they're gorgeous. They're extremely high resolution and can even run at the full 90 Hz without dropping the resolution. I'm not able to see any pixels on this headset unless I really strain my eyes trying, and even then, that might just be placebo. Now, for PC VR, I'm not gonna say this thing is the absolute best looking headset, because I don't think any wireless headset will ever be able to hold that title. This one gets pretty damn close though. Something brought up a lot with OLED screens, even though it can affect any screen, is Mura. Basically, it can look dirty when it really isn't. Yeah, that just isn't a problem on the Galaxy XR. This is one of the cleanest looking displays I have ever seen. This was also my first time trying an OLED headset, and yeah, it's nice. Colors are more vibrant, contrast is better, and if the edges of my field of view are black, I just can't tell where the lenses end. That being said, I still don't understand why people stay on like 5-year-old headsets just to avoid LCD. The bigger thing I notice when switching between the Galaxy XR and my Quest Pro is the lack of Mura and the higher resolution. LCD can also have some advantages over micro OLED screens too. Persistence blur is a real problem on these displays. Things can look blurry as you move your head around even if your eyes are still perfectly in the sweet spot of the lens. This effect only gets worse the brighter you run the headset. I've been able to get used to it, but some people really hate it and it's just less of a problem on LCD headsets. Micro OLED screens are also pretty small compared to their LCD counterparts. You gotta use smaller lenses with them. Look at the size difference between the Quest 3 and the Galaxy XR's lenses. This leads to smaller sweet spots, and you're also gonna notice weird stuff happening at the edge of the lens easier. Now, I do think the lenses on the Galaxy XR are actually pretty good. I find the sweet spot more than adequate, and the edge-to-edge clarity is good for like 90% of the lens. In that outer 10%, I start noticing a bit of brightness fall off, and also a tiny bit of a pink hue shift. A lot of Quest Pros have something similar with a brown or an amber hue, On mine, that takes up more of my vision than the pink on the Galaxy XR does. I will say I'm using a comfort mod that lets my eyes get a lot closer to the lenses, which helps a lot with minimizing that. Glare is also a thing because yay, pancake lenses. I find it really hard to quantify it because it does feel worse than my Quest 3 or Quest Pro. But the Galaxy XR has better contrast than those headsets, and glare is most noticeable in scenes with lots of contrast. It also gets a lot brighter too. My Quest Pro at full brightness feels dim compared to my Galaxy XR at even half brightness. That combined means that glare is just going to be a lot more noticeable. This is once again something I've been able to get used to, but a lot of people really hate. Something else that can play into visuals is wireless streaming. You actually have quite a few options for it with the Galaxy XR. Samsung's Game Link, which, sucks. ALVR if you use one of the nightly releases, Weavern if you're on Linux, Steam Link which requires a modded APK and some workarounds to get it to run, and then the only option most people watching this video will care about, Virtual Desktop. Virtual Desktop is the only streaming solution that supports face tracking on Windows right now. You can also get really good visual fidelity out of it, so that isn't too much of a problem. Obviously, on wireless headsets, you're gonna be dealing with compression. Virtual Desktop has eye-tracked foveated encoding where there's less compression where you're looking at, and more where you aren't looking. Is there still compression? Yes, but it's a lot less noticeable, especially if you're using a dedicated router and maxing your bitrate out. Quite frankly, if you're on a headset this expensive and you aren't, you're an idiot. Now, will a headset that's wired using the exact same screens look better? Yes. Yes, it will, and it does. Nowadays, though, most people are going to find much bigger differences in things like freedom of movement, having to deal with a battery, and weight. Speaking of weight, let's talk a little bit about the comfort of this headset. It's like Samsung looked at the Quest Pro and just copied it, because this thing is basically a Quest Pro. Yeah, most people are gonna want some form of comfort mod. I've made a whole video on those, but the TLDR is that I've settled on the globular cluster kit. Everything about it is way more comfortable than stock. The thinner forehead pad lets me get my eyes a lot closer to the lenses and get better FOV. And overall, it just makes the headset fit like a headset should fit. Now, I will say if you're someone who hates the way the Quest Pro fits with or without its comfort mods, then you're probably not gonna like the Galaxy XR because it ends up being extremely similar. Something else you may or may not like is the semi-open interface. By default, the Galaxy XR is like using the partial light blockers on the Quest Pro. You can't see out the sides of the headset, but you can see out the bottom. There's no way to fully open up the sides if you're someone who likes to do that. It does come with its equivalent of the full light blocker though, so if you want to fully close things off, you don't need to spend extra money. The biggest way it strays from the Quest Pro is with the battery because it's fully external. This is a very love it or hate it kind of feature. I really like it since it takes a bunch of weight off the headset, and now when I want to charge it while I'm using it, it's heating up in my pocket instead of on my head. A lot of people hate it though because now you have a wire running somewhere along your body that has the potential to get in the way. You also need a way to keep the battery on you, whether that be a pocket in your clothes or some sort of strap. Additionally, you're forced to use Samsung's battery. You can't just plug a bigger battery in, or you can't just plug in straight to the wall. It has to go to that battery first. Without any sort of extension, I get around 2 hours of battery life, which isn't bad. For extending it though, I've settled on using these hot swappable Kiwi batteries that I can just wrap around the Galaxy's battery. It's not the most elegant setup, but it works. Before we move on, you should consider subscribing to my channel if you've been enjoying this video or any of my other videos in the past. A lot of my viewers aren't subscribed and it really does help me out a lot. I wish the controllers were better because wow, if you play actual VR games, you're gonna wanna just use Lighthouse controllers. First of all, these things do not come with the headset. They're a $250 add-on. To be fair, they feel really nice in the hand. They're weighted fine, the buttons, grip, and trigger all feel good to press, and the haptics on them are really good too. The joysticks, however, make a terrible clicking sound. Listen to this. Now yes, a joystick is a mechanical part, so it's normal for it to make some noise, but never in my life have I heard one making a noise so loud that I can hear it while playing VR games. This might be acceptable on a cheap controller, but not on a $250 one. You can definitely get by with them for games like VRChat, but if you're trying to play something like Beat Saber, or a game where you want to reach behind your back to like throw something or open an inventory, these things are no-goes. Whenever the headset loses sight of the controllers, it feels like it tries to do no prediction because it just freezes them instantly. Virtual Desktop isn't doing it any favors either though. It has a new problem where sometimes when the controllers are frozen, they'll just teleport randomly. It can be above you, it can be to the side, but they don't stay in place. This isn't a problem in the OS and it isn't a problem in ALVR, so I'm not too sure what's going on there. Similarly, I can't get FluxPose to work with Virtual Desktop on the Galaxy XR. When I move my head around, everything starts going crazy. The exact same mount with the exact same calibration works perfectly on ALVR. And then the microphone. It's overly quiet when using Virtual Desktop, but if you turn on the noise suppression feature, it returns to a normal volume and starts sounding really bad. This isn't a problem on other apps. You can easily get around this by just using software to boost the gain though. Virtual Desktop always has some amount of jank on non-meta headsets, and their reasoning is usually something about it being a problem with the operating system. I just can't see that being the case when it's happening on their software and their software only. In their defense, Android XR is certainly something else. Coming from Horizon OS, it is incredible for someone like me who just wants to pop the headset on and open my streaming software. There's no lag even right after turning the headset on, the environments aren't filled with stupid bloat, and I have the same freedoms that I would have on any other normal Android device. You can download stuff right off the Play Store, sideload apps without needing to create a special developer account, and even get into Android's developer options the same way you would on a phone. It's great that it works like a regular Android device. It just seems like they forgot this one is also supposed to be a VR headset. There's no way to draw a boundary. You can have a small circle, a large circle, or use developer options to completely turn it off. I had to turn it off because even the large circle isn't big enough to cover my play space. There's also a green dot that shows up on top of everything whenever an app is using your microphone. That's obviously what I want on a headset that can get burn-in. You can use something called Galaxy XR Toolkit to turn it off, but I've noticed that you have to do that every time you restart the headset. And like, why isn't this an official feature? Why do I need a third-party tool to do that? There's honestly a lot of other stuff in Android XR like that, but most of it doesn't matter for PC VR. What does is that they've already managed to temporarily decimate the headset with an update. The April 2026 update introduced a bunch of problems with tracking and stuttering for people using the headset for over 30 minutes on PC VR. It took them over a month to fix it, and there was no way to roll back the update. I thankfully didn't experience that because Android XR doesn't force you to update. Look, I've been using Meta headsets long enough to know that if I can avoid a problem and let other people find it first, I'm gonna do that. It's really unfortunate because the tracking of this headset already isn't amazing. If you're trying to anchor a static window in space, you can definitely notice it drifting a little bit over time. This is also the most noticeable I've ever seen drift when using continuous calibration. It's not awful, but it gets a little annoying sometimes. I've been using Slime with this headset more than anything else just because it makes life a little bit easier on me. What isn't unfortunate is the audio. The speakers sound really full for being an in-arm design. They're definitely a lot better than a Quest 3 or Pro. They also hit a pretty respectable volume. The microphone actually sounds decent when it isn't being butchered by Virtual Desktop. You know, considering there's actually 6 of them, that makes sense. There's 4 on the bottom and 1 on each of the side arms, which, wow, okay, that seemed a little bit excessive considering what an Index or Beyond can do with 2, but whatever, I guess. Unfortunately, there's no audio jack, which is really lame. There is, however, a USB-C port that you can use instead. One last thing worth mentioning is the pass-through. It's really good. I'm able to read screens to do things like respond to messages, read emails, or even pull 2FA codes. So is the Galaxy XR worth $1,800? While I'm happy with my purchase, it definitely has problems. Some of them probably shouldn't be problems on a headset this expensive, but everything has problems. Out of every headset I've tried at this price point, the Galaxy XR is my favorite. For SocialVR, the built-in eye and face tracking is up to par with what most people expect without needing to run additional software or use external add-ons. The built-in speakers are great, and the mic is good when it's working right. It's also one of, if not the best wireless experience on the market right now. If you're someone who's fine with a wired headset and/or you don't really care about SocialVR-oriented features, then you'd probably be better off with a different headset. I'd also stop and ask yourself, do you need to drop $2,000 on a headset to be happy? This thing is 4 times the price of a Quest 3 or used Quest Pro, but I really wouldn't say it's 4 times better. Maybe closer to 2 times better. There's also plenty of stuff that doesn't cost $2,000. You could pick up a big screen Beyond or a Pimax Crystal Light. Or if you're after eye and face tracking, we're finally starting to see add-ons for stuff like the Quest 3. If you're truly after the best of the best though, the Galaxy XR really just is the ultimate SocialVR headset. It has close to the best visuals on the market, and the headsets that look better than it can't keep up with it on things like eye and face tracking. I'd like to take a second to thank my channel members. If you want to support the channel more than just subscribing, then becoming a member is a great way. All members get to see videos a little bit earlier than everyone else, and tier 2 and above are gonna start getting some special videos soon.